Now let's read the story further. Moving further, page number 20. Towards dusk, 7 tiny men marched homeward singing. But when they opened the door, to their surprise, they found a bowl of hot soup on the table and the whole house clean and tidied. Upstairs was Snow White, fast asleep on one of the beds. The chief dwarf prodded her gently. Prodded means to touch gently. Now, what happened? Earlier we read that Snow White got into the cottage. She came to know that must be 7 people live here. And what happened? She thought of making the meal for the 7 people who lived here. So she made the meal for the 7 people and went to bed, went to sleep on the bed. When the dwarfs came to their home, they saw that the whole house is clean, the meal is already ready, there is a soup already served in the bowl, and they saw that someone is sleeping on their bed. So one of the chief dwarf went to Snow White and pushed her gently on her shoulder. "Who are you?" he asked. Snow White told them her sad story, and tears sprang to the dwarf's eyes. Then one of them said, as he noisily blew his nose, "Stay here with us." "Hooray! Hooray!" they cheered, dancing joyfully round the little girl. The dwarf said to Snow White, "You can live here and tend to the house while we are down to the mine. Don't worry about your stepmother leaving you in the forest. We love you and we will take care of you." Snow White gratefully accepted their hospitality, and next morning the dwarfs set off the work. But they warned Snow White not to open the door to strangers. Now when Snow White told her story, that how she came to this cottage, to this jungle, how she bought to this jungle, and what all happened in the back, what all happened in her past. When she told the story to the dwarfs became very emotional and told Snow White, they offered Snow White that she can live with them in their house, but she has to take care of their house. And what next warning they gave? That when they are off to work, she is not going to open the gate for the strangers. Meanwhile, the servant had returned to the castle with the heart of raw deer. He gave it to the cruel stepmother, telling her it belonged to Snow White, so that he could claim the reward. Highly pleased, the stepmother turned again to the magic mirror, but her hopes were dashed, for the mirror replied, "The loveliest in the land is still Snow White." What happened now? The servant returned to the castle with the heart of a deer, and he told to Madam, to the wicked stepmother, that the heart belonged to the Snow White, and that now the Snow White is no more. So the stepmother became very happy, and what happened? She went to the mirror and asked, "Mirror, mirror, now tell me, who is the loveliest lady on the land?" Then what he said? Still the loveliest lady. Who is the loveliest lady? Only Snow White. That she is still alive and she is still living. She is still alive and she is living in the jungle with some people in the house of the dwarfs. The loveliest in the land is still Snow White, who lives in 7 Dwarfs' cottage down in the forest. The stepmother was beside herself with rage. Now the stepmother got really very angry. First, the servant betrayed her. Second, the girl to whom she wanted to kill is still alive. She must die, she must die, she screamed, discussing herself as an old peasant woman. She put a poisoned apple with the others in her basket. Then, taking the quickest way into the forest, she crossed the swamp to the edge of the trees. She reached the bank unseen, just as Snow White stood waving goodbye to the 7 Dwarfs on their way to the mine. What happened? Now, her mother, the stepmother, disguised herself as a old peasant woman and took some apples in her hand. And now she marched towards the forest where Snow White lived with the 7 Dwarfs. She disguised as the old peasant so that Snow White doesn't recognize her. And she took a basket full of apples, and one of the apples was poisoned. So she saw Snow White waving back to the Dwarfs where they were going to their work. Snow White was in the kitchen when she heard the sound at the door. Knock, knock. Who's there? She called suspiciously, remembering the Dwarf's advice. I am an old peasant woman selling apples, came the reply. I don't need any apples, thank you, she replied. But they are beautiful apples and so juicy, said the velvety voice from the outside the door. I am not supposed to open the door to anyone, said the little girl, who was reluctant to disobey her friends. And quit right too. Good girl, if you promise not to open to the strangers, then of course you can't buy. You are a girl indeed, you are a good girl indeed. Then the old woman went on, and as a reward for being good, I am going to make you a gift of one of my apples. Would you allow me to give an apple through the window? Without a further thought, Snow White opened the door just a tiny crack to take the apple. Now, when the stepmother, being an old peasant, went over there, she knocked on the door and told Snow White, when she asked who is on the door, she told the stepmother told Snow White that I am an old peasant and I have came here to give you some juicy apples. But Snow White rejected the offer. She told that I am not going to open the door. Then the stepmother told, very good, the Dwarfs have advised you that not to open the door for the strangers. That is a very good thing that you are obeying them, and being a good girl, I am going to give you an apple as a reward. So don't open the door, just open a little window so that I can give you the apple, a single apple as a reward. And without giving a second thought, Snow White opened the window and took the apple in her hand. As soon as she took the apple in her hand and came closer to the apple, she got faint and became dead, lifeless. She was dead. Let's read further and let's come to know what happened next. There, now isn't it a nice apple? Snow White bite into the fruit and as she did fell on the ground in a faint. The effect of the terrible poison had left her lifeless instantly. Now chuckling heavily, the wicked stepmother hurried off, but as she ran back across the swamp, she tripped and fell into the quicksand. No one heard her cries for help, and she disappeared without a trace. Now what happened? As soon as Snow White took a bite from the apple, she fell on the ground and became lifeless. Instantly, the wicked mother got very happy, and when she was dancing and hurried off towards the castle, when she was going back towards the castle, she got into a swamp and she was tripped. She was tripped and fell into the quicksand, and she cried, "Help! Help! Help!" But no one listened to her cries, and she disappeared without a trace. She got into the swamp and died over there. Now, the wicked mother also died. Now you know that if you do something wrong with the others, the first thing, the wrong happens with you also. So never think of doing anything wrong to somebody. It will backfire to you one day definitely. Meanwhile, the dwarfs came out of the mine to find the sky had grown dark and stormy. Loud thunder echoed through the valleys and streaks of lightning ripped the sky. Worried about Snow White, they ran as quickly as they could down the mountain to the cottage. Now what happens? As it became dark, the dwarfs also hurried towards their home. They saw that the weather is not looking good, so let's move to our home and see how is Snow White. There they found Snow White lying still and lifeless. The poisoned apple lay by her side. They did their best to bring her back to life, but it was no use. They wept and wept for a long time. Then they laid her on a bed of rose petals, carried her into the forest, and put her in a crystal coffin. Each day they laid a flower there. Now what happened? The dwarfs, they saw that Snow White is lying down on the bed. She is lifeless, she is dead, she is no more, and they are a bitten apple. They came to know that something wrong has happened with Snow White. They tried their best to bring her back to her life, but all went in vain. She was dead now. So what happened? They wept, they cried a lot, but it was of no use. Then they laid her on the bed of a rose petal and put her into a crystal coffin. Coffin is a box where dead people are kept. Each day they laid flower on her. Then one evening they discovered a strange young man admiring Snow White's lovely face through the glass. After listening to the story, the prince, for he was a prince, made a suggestion. If you allow me to take her to the castle, I will call in famous doctors to wake her from this peculiar sleep. She is so lovely, and I would love to kiss. He did, and as though by magic, the prince's kiss broke the spell. To everyone's astonishment. Now what happened? one day, one evening, a prince was going by there and he saw that Snow White is in a crystal coffin. And as he saw that such a beautiful lady is lying down in a crystal coffin. So Dwarf said, "Who are you?" He said that I am a prince, and if you allow me, I will take this pretty lady to my castle, and I will call all the famous doctors from all over the world, and I will try my best to bring her back to her life. And she is so pretty that I would love to kiss her on her forehead. And as soon as the prince kissed Snow White on her forehead, the spell broke. The wicked spell broke. And what happened? Now this is something very interesting. To everyone's astonishment, Snow White opened her eyes. She had amazingly came back to life. Now in love, the prince asked her to marry him, and the dwarfs reluctantly but happily bid goodbye to Snow White. From that day on, Snow White lived happily in a great castle, but from time to time she was drawn back to visit the little cottage down in the forest to her dwarf friends. As soon as the prince kissed her back on her forehead, the spell broke, and to everyone's astonishment, everyone got surprised that Snow White came back to her life. She was alive again. And after that, in the end of the story, what happened? The prince and Snow White got married. They lived happily ever after in their big great castle. And time to time, she made a visit to the 7 dwarfs as well. I hope you like the story. Thank you. Thank you so much. Now let's do the exercises of chapter number 3. Question number 1, I'm going to read the questions and you are going to write the answers. Who was Snow White and why was her stepmother jealous of her? Write down the answer. Snow White was a princess who was very pretty with blue eyes and long black hair. And the answer to the second part, why was her stepmother jealous of her? Her stepmother was jealous of her because Snow White was very pretty and very beautiful. Second question, describe the cottage where Snow White reached for shelter. Now you have to describe how was the cottage. So you have to mark the answer in the book. I am just reading the answer. There was a strange cottage with a tiny door, tiny windows and a tiny chimney pot. Everything about the cottage was much tinier than it ought to be. This is the answer number 2. Let's read question number 3. How did the stepmother give a poisoned apple to Snow White? Let's read out the answer. The stepmother disguised herself as an old peasant woman. She put a poisoned apple with the others in her basket. She reached to the cottage and knocked on the door. She offered the poisoned apple to Snow White and gave her the poisoned apple as a reward for being a good girl and not opening the door for the strangers. This is how she gave the poisoned apple to Snow White. Now let's read out question number 4. How did Snow White back to life? How she came back to life? As soon as the prince kissed Snow White on her forehead, she came back to life. This is the very easy answer. What do you learn from the story? What do you learn from the story? We learned from this story that we should not dig hole for others. If we are going to do so, we ourselves are going to fall into that grave. Right? We should not think bad about others. We should not get jealous from others and we should not do anything bad to them. If we are going to do anything bad to them, that is going to backfire and we are going to be hurt first. Right? I hope you all understood. The answers are really very easy. Thank you so much for watching the video. Happy learning.